host, Jeremy, with my gorgeous co-host, Delaney. How's it going, Delaney?
What's up, everybody? Hi, how are you?
All right. Before I go ahead and jump in here, I'm going to load up the stream because it doesn't let me load it ahead of time because it's just YouTube. It's just terrible like that. What's up? We got Gregory in the chat, Mitch, Tyler, Anthony, Athenian, Stalking Horse. What's going on, guys? And we got Osis already in the stereo chat. Everybody is ready to go. They want to know what the narrative of the week is.
Oh, I do too. Like, what's up? Like, it seems like it's been pretty slow news week aside from, all the stuff going on in Minneapolis. But luckily, we've got a nice little... We've got some stuff to talk about anyways.
Your boy is plugged in, okay? See, I am always plugged into everything. I just passively consume all of this news. And before we jump into it, guys, on stereo, we are streaming on youtube.com/weeklynarrative. If you're on the YouTube, you want to join in on the stereo stream, ask questions. You could download the stereo app on iPhone or Android and follow at Weekly Narrative. All one word. You'll find us there. We've got, as you can see from the title, we're going to be talking about the low IQ pandemic, because there's not just one pandemic happening right now. There's actually various pandemics happening, but nobody's talking about the low IQ pandemic. We're going to be talking about that today. We're also going to be talking about more race hoaxes, of course, because you can never get enough of those, right? We always got to pump that racism. We got to make sure that the supply meets the demand. And we got yet another case. Seems like almost every week now we're getting these cases of black people or brown people resisting arrest on body cams, and then the left tries to spin it as police violence. So I'm going to try and save that a little more towards the end, because I know that's what's going to get a lot of the engagement on the stereo app, but we got a lot of topics we didn't cover from Tuesday. First of that being in our hyper-feminization segment. So let's get started, folks. Pop open your Coca-Cola or whatever it is that you like. I've got some rum and Coke.
I just got Dr. Pepper, no booze.
All right. Well, that sounds boring. Let's jump into From the Hill. First story of the night in our hyper-feminization of society segment.
Super reliable Hill.
Energy Secretary says we don't want to use the past definitions of infrastructure. That's right. So you guys know that recent infrastructure bill was passed. I think it was like $2 trillion, something like that. Yep, $2 trillion plan from Biden. So, I mean, okay, I'll give it to Biden. $2 trillion on infrastructure. It sounds good, right? It sounds good off the top.
That's a good investment. I mean, we need some reform on our infrastructure. I'm all for that. $2 trillion, that sounds like plenty of money.
Yep, unfortunately, now, because women are leading all these positions, and because we are in a language war, of course, we have to not only change the definition of infrastructure, but we have to expand the scope massively of what infrastructure actually is to meet the hyper-feminized trends of society now. So, from the article, Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm said Sunday that the administration did not want to use past definitions of infrastructure when asked about President Biden's $2 trillion plan. Traditionally, Delaney, what comes to your mind when I say the word infrastructure?
I think bridges and roads and, factories, things that, we need to better connect ourselves and, railroads and, airports and stuff like that. That's what I think of when I think of infrastructure.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty much where I was.
What are they called? Oil drills and fracking areas. That's part of infrastructure because, that harnesses energy. So that way we can consume the energy and, not depend on wind turbines and solar energy for everything.
Yeah, I think everything you're saying plus like electrical grid, things like that, pipelines, things like that. So, also water pipes in like places like Flint. That's also infrastructure. For some reason, there's not a lot of conversation around that. But we do have. Listen to how she explains this. This is Jennifer Granholm. What is infrastructure? Historically, it's been what makes the economy move. What is it that we all need to ensure that we as citizens are productive? So we need roads, we need bridges, we need transmission. You need lights in people's homes and offices. You need to make sure that people can actually go to work if they have an aging parent or child. Interesting. Did you see how they expanded that definition? They just kind of snuck it in towards the end. She says, you need to make sure that people can actually go to work. So she comes at it by saying, well, it's the stuff that you need to work, right? Well, you also need to make sure that if you have an aging parent or child, you have to work while they're taken care of too. Throwing that in at the end, expanding the definition.
Oh, okay.
And
I see where this is kind of going, but I'm ready to learn more.
She said that adding that infrastructure, quote, evolves to meet the American people's aspirations. So we're evolving. This is progressive, okay? This is what progressivism is. It means changing the definitions of things that you thought you knew into new things. And so that's interesting. I wanted to point out, this is a tweet from some other woman in the government, of course, Senator Gillibrand. And this is what she said. This has turned into a meme. If you're on Twitter, you've seen this where people say X is infrastructure. It's a meme that was born out of this post right here from Senator Gillibrand. It says, paid leave is infrastructure. Childcare is infrastructure.
Oh, God.
Caregiving is infrastructure. Now, Uncle Joey, can I have a Lambo? Says Dave. No, you don't get a Lambo.
Nope, sorry. Lambos we're fresh out of Lambos.
So this is the most interesting thing about what we're seeing right here, because this is the reason it's in the hyper feminization of society segment, because women want what they want childcare. Paid leave is for maternity leave, stuff like that. Caregiving, that's a new one. Now we're starting to see caregiving enter the narrative. We've got a lot of boomers, people getting old, who are going to need to be cared for in their older age. Their children don't want to do it. Senator Gillibrand doesn't want to take care of her grandma or grandpa. She wants the government to do it. So that's now in the scope of what infrastructure is. But I'm curious what your thoughts are. I have a one more deeper level of analysis on this. But before I go there, I want to see what you think. Do you think childcare is infrastructure?
No. That's not infrastructure. Like, I get where they're coming from, because childcare is so expensive, and it's hard to find decent childcare. But you don't need somebody else to take care of your children. You can take care of your own children.
Interesting.
And I'm pretty sure there are lots of states out there that do give paid leave to men and women when they have babies. Like, I have a family member who just had a baby, and he's on paternity leave for like 6 months or 3 months or 4 months, however long it is. And he gets paid to stay at home and take care of his baby already. So it's very state by state. So if you don't like the way your state is being run, there's 49 other states that you can move to that, give you what you want.
Yeah, and you tapped on the part that I want to go a little bit deeper into, because what we're seeing here, and I think everybody needs to see it from this angle, is they're furthering the destruction of families and furthering making the government your parents. Tyler in the YouTube chat says they know their children hate them, so they're looking out for their own old selves. It's funny, but it's actually 100% true. So the ones who do have children, which a lot of these women won't, because they're fed the leftist lie of, be a strong, independent career women, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of them won't have kids, but the ones that do, yeah, their kids will not take care of them in their old age. However, what else does this do to the women of society? Because the women are the ones who are supposed to be taking care of the children. The women are the ones who are supposed to be watching over the home, doing the caregiving. Paid leave, again, for like maternal leave. That's what they're inferring or implying is things like maternal leave, all female related things. Because why do they want to do this? Because they need more women in the workforce. They don't want them in the home. They need more tax cattle, More debt cattle. They want to turn women into debt cattle. This is a continuation of encouraging women to join the workforce, get college educated, get into a ton of debt, go out, don't get married, don't have kids, be a part of the workforce, because that's what equality truly is. If you want to be equal to a man, you're not going to be happy, but you will be equal. You have to go out and join the workforce. And if you happen to have a kid, well, I mean, you can't stop working, obviously, because you're a strong, independent career woman. You have to have childcare given to you by the government. You have to have caregiving given to you by the government. You have to have the daddy government come in and take care of you.
And why would you, like, personally, why would you want, like, the government to pay for your childcare? Like, what happened to grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins stepping up and helping you take care of your children as well? Like, growing up, like, after school, my grandma would watch me, on both sides of my family. They would take time and watch me after school and help me with my homework and, you know, teach me to do stuff. My parents didn't need to pay for childcare. So what is this obsession with, like, daycare and sending your kids to daycare? It's really, like, it's weird to me nowadays that people are, like, comfortable with letting strangers raise their children.
It is strange. It's kind of a chicken and the egg type of situation. We don't have the multi-generational families. So is that what's encouraging us to put our kids into daycare and not get married and be career people? Or is it the other way around? Do we not have multi-generational families because we became career-oriented and send our kids into daycare as opposed to giving them to our grandparents, things like that? Grandmas today are crackheads, says Dari in the YouTube chat. Well, that's, I mean, around pharmaceuticals, probably. Like pharmaceuticals, maybe? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I guess. Like, I guess I'm just one of the lucky few that actually had, like, non-crackhead grandparents on both sides.
See, I didn't even come from a multi-generational family. I never really knew any of my grandparents, and I still recognize the importance of having them. If it were up to me, I would try to reverse that trend and create a multi-generational family for my kids, because and this is what all the women who have no long-sighted long-term planning capabilities, they're all about instant gratification, inability to delay gratification, things like that. You know, these 28-year-old career women, they don't look out 20 years, 30 years, 40 years into the future and think to themselves, who's going to take care of me when I get older? They don't actually do any risk assessment on whether, you know, running around, having a career, sleeping around with a bunch of guys until you're in your late 30s is a good idea or not. But it feels good in the moment. It feels good to get that attention from the guys. It feels good to be wear the suit to work 60 hours a week. Actually, it probably feels horrible. But you know what? We've prioritized being right over feeling good these days. So they want to be right because they want to be equal. They want to stick it to the man. They want to break the glass ceiling. But they feel horrible the entire time they're doing it. And the statistics show that women are incredibly unhappy. And this will only continue that trend.
Right. Yeah. This isn't okay. Well, I say let them do it. Let them do it. Let them get their government funded daycares and see how shitty it is and how terrible their children end up. So maybe they'll learn their lessons.
That's kind of where I'm at with all this stuff at this point. With the extreme feminism, the hyper-feminization of society, I say just give them everything they ask for and let them live miserable, pathetic lives. And once that the few that have children, or the ants, this is what's going to happen. All these feminazis are going to be drunk wine ants to real children, like their sisters have kids or something like that. And those women, those girls, those young girls will see the crazy wine ants, how mentally unstable they are, how drunk they always are, how unhappy they always are. They just cry randomly for no reason. They're going to see that, and then that's where, like, the learning is going to happen on a societal level that feminism is bad, from the drunk wine ants who have 18 cats. I think that's... and we got a question in the chat. Done Now says, do either of you have kids? The answer to that is no. She's also a lesbian, so it's a little more complicated for her.
Definitely. But I want children, and I understand the importance of children. My older brother has a child. My uncles and my step siblings all have children. So I have lots of children in proxy to me. But have I birthed any? No, not yet. Hopefully someday soon.
We've got a comment from Stereo side of things from Bunny. Let's see what Bunny has to say.
So I'm about to get an abortion, and I'm gonna go to work the next day after my abortion, and I might have several abortions because that's how I roll.
I don't think it's any
Okay.
coincidence that she sounded black, and yeah, again, it's not really shocking. We know the numbers on the black abortions. I don't know why she mentioned that though. It's almost as if she thinks it would trigger us, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you should. I think, whatever babies you do birth deserve the right to life, but you do you, boo. You're the one that's going to have to live with the consequences, not me.
Well, you know, there's nothing white supremacists love more than abortion because how disproportionately that affects black communities. I mean, blacks would probably be a majority by now, racially speaking, if there weren't so many of them being aborted. But hey, she's been convinced that
Hmm.
that is the cool thing to do, and she really does believe that. She's going to continue to do it. She really will
She
have
probably
like four
goes to
abortions.
the pro she probably goes to the protests and screams out how many abortions she had. Like that's something to be proud of.
Yes, and those are the exact type of people that we're talking about when we say we want you to get everything that you're asking for. Please have 18 abortions, and let us know how that turns out.
Yeah.
Let us know how that turns out for you.
Yeah. And when you're 40 and have no children and nobody to take care of you when you're 80, yeah, you'll be crying. You'll be crying about all the 18 abortions that you had.
She'll be getting fat checks from the daddy government while simultaneously saying that the white men who supply all that tax dollars that she leeches are white supremacists. Anyway, let's go to in our second article in the hyperfeminization of society topic. We've got a story hot off the press from Canada. You guys know Canada is a couple steps ahead of America in terms of their hyperfeminization. And we just got news that they will be expanding police powers in Ontario. Why, do you ask? Well, obviously because of COVID. We have to expand the power of the state to make sure that we want maximum safety. Remember, safety over everything is one of the feminine traits. It's a motherly instinct that makes them emphasize instinctually. It's not a choice. They just instinctually emphasize safety at all possible opportunities. And this is the large-scale societal manifestation of that. So we've got an infographic here from Ontario. Breaking news, stricter restrictions official for Ontario announced Friday, April 16th at 4:15 p.m. It says police can stop anyone and can stop any vehicle asking for purpose of travel and address, can ticket you if you
Oh
refuse
no.
to comply. Border checkpoints at Ontario, Manitoba, and Ontario, Quebec border. Outdoor gatherings are not
Whew.
allowed, only with your household or with one other household if living alone. Essential stores are limited to 25% capacity. Outdoor recreation like playgrounds, golf courses, courts are completely closed. Religious weddings and funerals, maximum of 10 people indoors or outdoors. Oh man,
Wow.
you're like, well, Louis died, but we can only allow 10 people. So who really wants to go to Louis's funeral? Non-essential construction is all stopped as well. So basically, the entire country's locked down. And if you are out in your car for any reason, if you're driving to the store, police can stop you, and it's totally within their powers to ticket you for being out for presumably a non-essential reason. So there you go. Uh,
Wow.
yeah,
Remind me to never go to Ontario ever.
papers, please. You got a license for
Yeah,
those
really.
bananas you
Show
just
me your
bought from the
papers.
grocery store? Yeah, it's really bad. Um,
Steven YouTube chat called Canada America's hat? Question mark? Definitely.
it's a tattered, moth-eaten, moldy old hat. Indeed. Um, Tyler says must
I
not
would,
be having the same police problems as the states. Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, they must. They must. I don't know. So I don't know if this came from like the more conservative side of the government up there or the left side. It doesn't really matter because we're talking about these policies in relation to where they lie on the feminine to masculine scale, because that is the lens that you should be looking at everything in this world through. Not left versus right. It's about masculine versus feminine. And you would presume that if this was being perpetrated by their left, quote unquote, side of the political scale, that it would conflate with their anti-police sentiment. But no. So I'm guessing this is coming from the conservative side, because I don't think the left would endorse the expansion of police powers. But hey, when it's for COVID, when it's for safety from COVID, we're going to any lengths possible. I mean, I'm surprised we're not having people in America crying to have cops pull people over for not wearing masks yet, and things like that. I think we'll get there, but we're not there. Right. We're not quite there yet.
We're on the path. We're on the path towards that, and a lot of people are wanting that. You know, they want to be shown papers and want to have a police state that has that much power, but then they go and burn down cities because the police have too much power. So, I mean, we'll see. We'll see where it goes.
Tom McDonald made a good decision to leave. Did he leave Canada? Well, good for him. And it kind of it makes you wonder. There's been a lot of talk on Twitter about leaving Canada now because of stuff like that, and it begs the question, or at least should get you thinking. What's the line for you? What would you have to see happen in America to say, you know what, I'm out, I'm leaving? And I'm not talking about stupid, superficial things like Donald Trump gets elected to office, I'm going to Canada. I'm talking about, real egregious violations of principles that the country is founded on and things like that. Have you ever thought about that at all, Delaney? You just want to stay in California forever.
I have. I mean, I love California so much just because, it's beautiful here and the weather's always freaking phenomenal. I think what would drive me out of the United States in general is if they actually if like our politicians were so weak that they actually let the super leftist majority actually run the government as much however they see fit, with no pushback, with nothing to like stop them, and turned our military into a bunch of pansies. I'd freaking like go to the Philippines or something. I don't know.
I'll direct you to the message from Osis in the YouTube chat. I can't say it out loud, but he is very strong feelings about your opinion on California. Stalking Horse says, lousy snowbacks. I like that, snowbacks. Let's try to make that a thing. See if anybody catches on to that reference. Some people do like being told what to do, says Dari. They feel like they are part of something. It's weird. Dari, that is exactly what we're talking about here. That's the feminization of society. They, because in reality, a woman will always submit to a dominant force. Generally, that's supposed to be a man. But in this case, the masculine force replacing the man, because there aren't really any dominant masculine males in society anymore, it's the government. So when the government comes in and says, don't worry, Delaney, or whatever female that they're talking to, we'll protect you. We're going to make the police catch all the bad guys. I know they were going to the store to buy milk. I know that was dangerous. We're gonna stop that. We're going to get vaccine passports because we want you to be safe at all times. So they love that. They love submitting to that domination of the government. It's a psychological thing. They're trained to do that whether they like it or not. We got a comment in stereo from Easy Bill. Is this our bill or is this a new bill?
I hope they stop committing fake hate crimes against POC. God forbid some white people in those areas get the inclination that they're going to get blamed for it no matter what, and therefore they should go ahead and just start doing it.
Well, he is quickly segueing us into the next topic of the night, which will be the new race hoaxes. We talked about last week, on Tuesday, about a race hoax that triggered an entire school to stop classes and go out and march in the streets. We're talking like hundreds of students, and it was fake. It was a hoax. Someone wrote it with a Sharpie on the wall, like, kill all N-words or something like that with like a really poorly drawn swastika. And then a David Starved David with 666 on it because, you know, all the Nazis are also satanic cultists and they want to try and summon demons through bathroom walls with Sharpies. This one is from a school called White Bear Lake. And we're going now to the Daily Mail, top-tier journalistic outlet, for exactly what the gentleman on the stereo call was mentioning, because we do have that in the title of the stream. We're going to be talking about, we are now in our Mo Racism segment, talking about race hoaxes. And just like the resisting arrest, which we'll get to next, these seem to be happening on a weekly basis. Minnesota high school student who was falsely accused of sending racist Instagram messages to black classmates fears for her safety despite officials confirming they were a hoax. I love how they tried to twist it into like a victimhood thing for her. Oh, yes, I love journalism.
Right?
She fears for her safety
Always
after
doing that. Always making...
trying to demonize the entire race and start a race war. Oh. You should. You should.
She really should be afraid. Like, yeah.
See, this is the thing. This is the hyperfeminization really does. It's in everything, and in this particular case, it's the absence of just the very concept of consequences. There, like the article almost implies that she should be able to send racist messages across Instagram to classmates and then not face consequences for that. Like, well, she didn't mean it, so she fears for her safety now. She's a victim. Yeah, that's not how the real world works, and that's exactly why we're trying to turn the tide of this hyperfeminization. Continuing from the article here, it says, Avery Severson said she fears for her safety after the false accusation. She was trying to start conservative student club at White Bear Lake High School after police and FBI investigation officials said the messages were a hoax. The student behind the slurs wants to, quote, raise awareness of social and racial injustice. Oh. So
what?
That's what we're doing now. So we write kill all the N-words all over the walls because we want to make sure that people don't forget. If you go like a week without seeing the N-word, you might forget that black people were slaves once, and we can't have that happen.
Oh, okay. So they're just basically proving Thomas Sowell correct by keeping racism alive by continuing to talk about it and continuing to make people feel bad that it happened. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
good idea. Sounds like a great long-term plan that they have here.
Well, we all know racism it's not dead, but it is on life support, only held alive by those who wish to monetize it. That's not the exact quote, but it's pretty close. Just by the way, look at how many ads are on this page. Jesus, it's like if I click on the 1 centimeter in any direction in the wrong way, I'm gonna get 10,000 viruses on my computer. Well, this is journalism, folks.
They're
right now.
Probably just they're just dying. Like they're dying. These news companies are dying, so they have to make money somehow, and might as well put all these shitty ads on their pages because that's the only way they're gonna make money.
So I don't know if there's anything useful in the rest of this article here, but let's see. A high school student from Minnesota has spoken out about being falsely accused of sending vile racist messages to black classmates after the incident was exposed as a hoax. Avery Severson was falsely accused of sending the messages, direct messages. So she was sending direct messages to people online, prompting outrage and, of course, a student walkout because we can't have any kind of incidents without a gigantic public display of, disagreement. And the school official said that an FBI investigation revealed that the female student who created the hateful messages wanted to, quote, raise awareness of social justice by staging the stunt. They refused to name the true perpetrator, so somebody used her name and sent messages calling people N-words or who knows what was in the messages, I'm sure it was emotionally devastating for those who received it because I don't know about you guys, but I've been on the internet for a long time. I've probably been called the N-word more times than I can even count. I've been called every name in the book. I've had people threaten to dox me, and this is before I even get involved in the politics side. I mean, just in being involved in gaming stuff for years, like since I was 13, I've heard everything. I've been called every name. I've had every threat, and I've never once cared about it. But when you have a hyper-feminized society, everyone's soft and pathetic, and they can't handle mean words, then somebody sending a bad word to you on a social media platform becomes a news story. So this shouldn't even be a news story in the first place. I just wanted to point that out. Even if this actually did happen, nobody should care about somebody sending them a message via Instagram. Okay, this is part of the low IQ pandemic that we're talking about with the title of the stream tonight, because all of these things also fall under the umbrella of the low IQ pandemic. Only absolute idiots would actually care about something like this happening to them, and I'd say that with a little hesitance, because reading a message is not something happening to you. But again, these are the people who believe words are violence. So
this school, they had like a walkout thing to show solidarity for this fake hoax, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if this walkout that they organized happened to like coincide with like some kind of quiz or test that the school, like a teacher was having on that day, and they just did a walkout because they didn't want to take the test. Just happened to be.
That takes way too much. That takes way too much planning. That's way too smart.
Right? They just saw an opportunity to do a walkout because of fake racism. So they just happened to be like, oh, you know what, Mrs. Pennypot is having a test, so let's organize a walkout on that day.
Oh, here we go. Here's the actual messages. Here's the screenshots of the messages themselves. So what does the since racism doesn't really actually exist, this is a good look inside the minds. Again, we talked about how in the last one, the hoax we talked about, they've had Sharpie with the Star of David in 666, and they said kill all N-words, and then they said some other secondary non-related things. But this is interesting because you get to see what they think a white supremacist would actually say, because they'd never actually seen a white supremacist say anything. So in this particular case, it said, leave my school, N-word. You N-word need to leave White Bear. And yeah, you guys are racist for having a black people club. Yeah, so basically they think, I guess, white supremacists just run around calling everyone the N-word all day, even though that's what black people actually do in reality. But we don't want to talk about that. And right. But they don't pronounce the ER, a hard ER, because they have an Ebonics accent. But we don't want to talk about that either, even though it's the same exact word, and they call each other the word all day long. So I found that a little entertaining.
Yeah, and I mean, I even see like white people, Hispanic people, and even Asian people calling, each other the N-word, like with the soft A, not the hard ER. So are they racist for saying that too? Or is it just like you have to get permission kind of thing?
I don't know. You would think that even in the similarity of the word, because again, remember, the reason they don't want you to say that word is because it reminds them of the time when they were slaves. And I don't know about you, but if somebody said almost the exact same version of that word, just with a slight pronunciation at the end of it, it would also still remind me of the time that I was a slave. It doesn't have to be pronounced the hard ER at the end for me to remember that word came from being slavery. But we all know that's a BS excuse that they use to control language and control other people. Here's one more message from there. It said, you should get hanged, you dirty African girl. Nobody wants you here. Go to a black school. This is White Bear Lake. You should get hanged. That's what they think a white supremacist would say. So, here's a good one. It says that's why George Floyd died. Can't wait until everyone your color leaves like that. Whoa, man.
Damn.
See, these people are actually having these thoughts. Nobody who's white is having these kind of thoughts. It's these people on the left, again, and we all know, we've covered how many times who knows how many times, how they are the actual racists. They have, they think black people are stupid. They can't find IDs. They can't use the internet. They can't score the same on tests in school. We all know that the leftists hate black people, and this is just a manifestation of that. It's almost like they're role-playing, like they wish they could say this for real themselves, so they have to role-play as a conservative to try and send these messages out to hoax, to make these hoaxes. Because, he thought he was going to get away with it, so... Or she. We don't know. Because, yeah, go ahead.
Or they, them, because you never know.
That's true.
Synergy Force in YouTube chat says, anyone who remembers being a slave, 1, isn't from America, 2, is schizophrenic. A little bit. And I mean, like you said, like, if like that word reminds you of that time, or what black people were called during that time, why would you consistently call people that look like you, have the same skin color as you, that word? Like, if it reminds you so much, like that doesn't make sense to me. Like,
there's nothing, and this
to me, it's like you would want to like not say it anymore.
No, here's what they should do. They should just let everybody say it all the time, because guess what that would do? It would completely just like the word Nazi. Just like the word white supremacist, it would completely devalue it. Now, by keeping it sacred, by keeping it forbidden, they're keeping it scarce. They give it inherent value, but that's like basic economics, supply and demand, scarcity, demand. They don't understand that by making it a rare thing to say, they're actually giving it more power. But again, we all know that they don't actually care about being called the N-word. They just want to have the power to control other people's language. Have that control over them.
Yeah, I mean, and this is a form of the mental illness that we talked about a few weeks back on Stereo about, pretending, like thinking that they can read other people's minds and read other people's thoughts, and just trying to just believe, instead of actually believing what people are saying to them, they just are like, no, I know what you're thinking, and that's what's more important, is what you're thinking, not what you're saying and what you're doing, but what you're thinking.
Right.
It's like, how would you know what I'm thinking?
Well,
like, if you really think that this is what white supremacists think, then you're severely delusional.
Also, I would like to, just since we're on the topic of the N-word, it's a hot topic these days. It's covered in a lot of circles, and how pathetic does it make your group of people look when you get so defeated, or you try to play like you're defeated anyway? Again, they're not actually defeated. They don't actually care. They play this. How does it make your group look if you just get completely annihilated, decimated mentally from hearing a word? It makes you look really pathetic, really weak. I just wanted to make sure that throw that one out there too. It doesn't make you look strong. It doesn't make you look, righteous or anything like that. It makes you look pathetic. Who cares? It's just a word.
That's how I agree 100% with you, Jeremy. That's how I feel about the slur against gay people that starts with an F. Like, I personally don't care if people say that, and
because you're not
I just
weak.
know so many other gays out there. Yeah, exactly. And I've explained this to people. I'm like, go ahead, say it. I don't care. I'm not going to get offended. It's just a word. If I let other people's words affect me so much that I'm like becoming emotionally unstable and unglued and asking you to change your vocabulary because I feel a certain way, that's weakness. That's not strength. Strength is taking whatever people give you and overcoming it, not succumbing to it.
Well said. Yeah, and to be fair, I wouldn't hang out around with you if you were the type of person to get offended by that. And that is the case for like 90% of the spaghetti people community, the LGBTers or whatever they are. I just can't even tolerate
the spaghetti clan.
I can't tolerate those people because they're so pathetic, mentally weak. Which is why you're on this podcast, because you are one of the special ones. Guys, we got almost 30 live viewers on the stream. Hit the like button. We're only at 12 likes on this. You guys are slacking. Pump
up the numbers, y'all.
Get the engagement up on that. Help us fight the YouTube overlords. Stalking Horse says, instead of saying N-words, say N people. and watch lefties' heads explode. And people.
And people.
I like that. I like that. JC Steck is
That's
trying
funny.
to. JC Steck is segueing us into the next segment. He says, "Lil Homicide is gone. Chicago is safer tonight." Well, JC, you are segueing us directly into the topic of the night, and that is the shooting of Lil Homicide, or as his non-gang name is known, Adam Toledo. This one's getting a lot of attention in the media. Delaney, have you seen this one? This is the one where everyone's showing the picture of him with the hands up.
I have not seen this one yet, so yeah, let's do this.
All right, so I'm gonna do this a little bit differently. Then you can see the stream, right?
Yeah, I have the stream up on my screen.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do, since you haven't seen this is gonna be good. I want to get your reaction, just a straight up, legitimate reaction to this. Now, what I'm gonna show on the screen is a picture that all of the media is sharing, and then I'm going to show you the actual video. So it'll be a little bit delayed on the stream, but let me open this in a new tab. Okay. So everyone on the stream is seeing right now the picture that you've all seen on the articles with Adam Toledo. He's got his two hands in the air in kind of a almost like a like shrugging what's going on type of pose towards directly looking at the police officer's body cam. And the narrative around this shooting is that the cops executed a 13-year-old boy because they shot him while his hands were in the air and he did not have a gun. What do you guys think about that one in chat? Let me see what the YouTube chat thinks. Do you guys think it's execution, right? I mean, look, he's got his hands in the air. There's no gun, obviously. It's a fairly clear picture. There's no gun, and he got shot immediately after this screenshot was taken. That's what they're trying to pass off. Okay, now it sounds pretty bad, right? If somebody shot a kid with their hands in the air like that, you would think that's bad, right?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, so
I love kids, but but I'm not. I'm also like trying to be objective and see it from all sides and know that just one angle is not always the right angle. So
now let me. I actually took the time to make a video of this I posted it on my own Twitter here. Pulling this up. It's just a slow motion version of the actual body cam footage, and with some notations in there. So. You're not going to get the full effect out of this unless you're watching the YouTube stream. Sorry for the folks on the stereo, but I'll go. It's perfectly easy for me to narrate this as we go. So we've got the actual video now. Now the cop is chasing Adam. So this is fleeing, and you don't know that he was fleeing the police in that picture. Did you know he was fleeing, Delaney?
I had no idea. No, it didn't look like he was fleeing it from that picture. I mean,
so immediately,
really
the story has changed for you. Without, if you've seen one nanosecond of a video, and now the story is instantly changed for you, right? The kind of the perspective is a little bit different because now you know that he was fleeing police. Okay, let's continue with the video here. So this takes place over a period of about 5 seconds total. Now, the video that you're seeing is in slow motion. The cop has a strobe light on the suspect because he does know that the suspect probably has a gun on him because he was responding to shots being fired in the middle of the night. Did you know that? No, he didn't know that.
I had no idea that's what the cop was there for.
Now, this is where it gets good. Everything you're about to see is going to occur within about 4 seconds of real time, but it's slowed down for you enough here in this video. Now, officer says, "Show me your effing hands." He turns, the body cam God, he is so lucky that the body cam got this within like a nanometer of the edge of the frame. You can see the suspect with a gun in his right hand, and he appears to be turning towards the officer. Okay, so gun in the hand. Officer sees it after the officer says, "Put your hands in the air." And the timestamp.
Yeah, you can see him trying to like hide it.
Yep. And what's going to happen now is within 1 second, we're at timestamp 39 seconds right now. The officer sees it immediately. He says, he verbalizes, he says gun. As he says gun, the suspect is turning towards the officer. And this is what everybody is leaving out. Now watch what happens next. Suspect is turning towards the officer, and he throws the gun behind the fence. However, from the video, there is absolutely no way that the officer would ever know that he threw the gun behind the fence. He was trying to ditch the gun because he didn't want to be caught with the gun. But the last thing the officer saw 0.5 seconds ago was the suspect with a gun in hand turning towards him. That is a no-no. Remember, the officer saw the gun in his hand after he said hands up. And within half of a second, literally, I think it was, somebody measured it, it was 0.8 of a second after the officer had a visual of the gun in the hand, we get the iconic screenshot of the video. And as the kid is raising his hands, the strobe light does project a shadow on the fence that could have been easily confused for a gun. You guys can go to my Twitter page at reality_deny if you want to see the full video. You can zoom it in. I'm not going to zoom it in fully here, but it does look like, I mean, if you're reacting with literally within 1/10 of a second, it does look like the shadow is the shape of a gun. And then
it definitely does. That looks like a gun from far away.
Yep, it absolutely does. And of course, you would think that it would be a gun because you just saw a gun in his hand 0.2 of a second ago, and now here it is. This is the
and you're also responding to a 911 call about shots fired in the neighborhood. So there's a gun somewhere in the neighborhood.
Exactly. And then immediately after that, there's the screenshot that everybody is posting, and then wow, does that change your perspective at all, Delaney?
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, keep in mind, this is in slow motion, but this all happened literally within about 3 seconds. And the turn from having the gun in the hand to turning to face the police officer was less than 1 second. And the narrative that everybody is spreading about this is that, oh, he was unarmed. He had his hands in the air. He didn't have a gun. And then they post a screenshot, but they don't post the video because they know that the video will prove them entirely wrong. And once you see that video, especially when you see it in slow motion and you look at the timestamps and you see what really happened and the time frames between the events, literally less than 1 second between seeing the gun in the hand and then turning to face the officer, that is, I mean, it's beyond reasonable to assume that the officer felt his life was in danger. It's not as if, and this is what they're trying to portray it as, they're trying to portray it as if the kid had his hands in the air for like 20 seconds and he was complying. He complied with all the officer's demands. He was standing there with his hands in the air, just staring at the officer, and then he just got blasted. Not even close to what happened. So walk me through what's going through your head right now, comparing what you saw in the screenshot that all the media outlets are sharing and then seeing the actual video.
These media companies are terrible. They just want you to be mad about this young man. And like, is this young man dying sad? Of course, like he's only 13, but they don't give you the beforehand footage and let you know, like, show you like a breakdown of what you just showed me of the gun in his hand and him throwing the gun away and then turning around with his hands up like he's innocent. It's like, no, dude, you're not innocent. You're not this innocent little child that didn't know what was going on. You're just like an innocent bystander. You're totally in the wrong. Like, it's not like they're just out there hunting him down. They were there for a reason. They had a call for shots being fired in the neighborhood. So yeah, oh my God,
Well, I think it'll help.
And these people are gonna riot over this, and they're not even gonna take a look at what you just showed me and see that there was a gun in hand, and see what the officer saw either.
Exactly. And I think what I'm actually going to do now is I'm going to show you the real-time version of that so you can see just how fast this whole thing actually happened, because the slow-mo does not do it justice. You have to see how fast this actually happened. Let me pull this up. I'm actually going to show a video clip from CNN, so watch this here. Chasing him. Tells him to put his hands up. Sees a gun, says gun, hands up, and then that's it. He's gone. Literally less than about 3 seconds total for the entire interaction from seeing the gun to, yes. And people are acting as if it's reasonable to expect a human being, a police officer, to 100% accurately respond within the time frame of less than half of a second. And that's just not reasonable. It's absolutely not reasonable at all. I heard the stereo comments piling up. Let's jump into some of those, because I got a feeling these are going to be good. This is Andrew.
Freeze! Put your hands in the air right now. Do not move. I got the mask.
Okay.
Freeze!
Oops, I didn't mean to double play that.
Oh my god. So I've only been here for like 5 seconds. It's just easy to tell that you guys are just cop supporters, right? What do you think?
Yeah.
Talk to me, weekly narrative. You don't think the cop did anything wrong?
Here we go. Nope. I think he was entirely justified, because
No.
he had, and this is, now, remember, we have to go by the legal standard here. The legal standard in this case is, did the officer feel like his life was in danger at that moment? And I would love to hear the argument for how seeing a gun in somebody's hand and then watching them turn to face you, knowing that they have a gun in their hand, does not put that officer in a fearful state. Please tell me how you can think that.
Yeah, I'm. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead, play it.
I'm just wondering, do you care?
Do we care about what?
Well, let's, yeah, let me skip down to one of his. He's dropped like 6 comments here. Let me go to one of his recent
Shame on
ones.
you, young Jen Lesbo. You're talking about a 13-year-old kid versus a professional man that is trained to handle situations.
Yeah, why is
You
the
guys are just
13-year-old
cop
kid
lovers.
out at 2 in the morning? Why is a 13-year-old kid out at 2 in the morning firing a gun in a neighborhood? Want to talk about responsibility? Where's the responsibility on his front? He's old enough to know that you can't be shooting a firearm in the middle of a neighborhood like that.
Ooh, uh-oh. Yeah, that's, see, this is the hyper-feminization right here in play. This guy wants to protect the child. The child, safety overall. How could a child, he's only 13, how could a child ever be justified of being killed by a police officer? But again, remember, the variable that matters here is whether or not the police officer felt like his life was in danger. And hopefully he can rationalize how he did not.
And I'm not like saying that the kid deserved to die, no way, shape, or form. But again, like, what is a 13-year-old boy doing out at 2 in the morning on a school night, firing a gun in a neighborhood where people are sleeping and people aren't shooting at him? So again, he's old enough to know that you can't be doing that kind of crap. Like, he's not 8 years old or 5 years old. He's 13. He's, in a lot of cultures, that's a man. So should the officer have like just let this young man shoot at him with the gun? No, absolutely not.
Steve Husted with the $5 super chat on the YouTube. He says, truly crushed to learn of the loss of James Evans Sr., beloved husband and father of JJ, Thelma, and Michael. You will be missed. Thank you, Steve. James Evans Sr. I have to Google that real quick, just because. It's probably like a 60s TV. Oh, that guy died? Oh, man. That's actually disappointing to me. That one is not funny, Steve. I am saddened by that one. But thank you for the $5 super chat anyway. Let's jump back to, I can't even read his name. His name is a bunch of scrambled symbols in stereo.
Why
here.
are you getting so worked up? Why are you getting so excited? Because you don't really care about the kid. You're a cop lover. You're a bootlicker.
You're the one getting worked up, buddy. You're the one that's saying I don't care about 13-year-olds when I do. And I'm just trying to point out that this 13-year-old boy shouldn't have been out at 2 in the morning shooting guns in a neighborhood. So yeah.
Well, see, there's only one side of this conversation that wants less 13-year-olds to get shot in the future, because one side is trying to dissuade terrible behavior like that, and the other is putting all of the responsibility and the blame on the cops. Which ones of those two options is going to lead to the death of more 13-year-olds in the future? I don't know.
I shouldn't even have stayed. The simple fact alone that I see white people in here talking about more racism hoaxes. The nerve.
Oh,
Sounds like you're the racist, buddy.
he does love saying white people, but this is the whole point of why we have to bring these up, because they can't actually have a conversation about it. It's kind of like when you show garlic to a vampire or something, they recoil in horror, like, ah! This is exactly the same thing, the same effect, because they can't do anything to it. They don't want to acknowledge that there's race hoaxes literally every week. It's just an objective fact. They don't want to talk about how all these police shootings are the result of fleeing the police, resisting arrest, at least the ones you see on the mainstream media anyway, the ones that he's upset about, the ones that he sees on social media. It's because, well, he's plugged in, he's programmed, he's jacked in to that feel-good hatred of hating cops, bigotry against cops, and these people also love to incite violence by ginning up false narratives against the police. He says we're cop lovers. No, we're just objectivity lovers. We like to look at all variables involved as opposed to a single screenshot of an entire video. That's all we were doing, is showing the entire video, showing you all of the facts. Yeah, are you opposed to seeing all the facts involved, or do you just want to see the one screenshot and claim, well, he had his hands up, he was complying?
Yeah, I would rather look at it objectively and see all sides, because like I said at the beginning, before you even played the video, not the one angle is not the only angle. There's many other angles that you have to look at these things from. And looking at where he was located, it looked like there were houses nearby, and he was shooting a gun in a neighborhood where there's people sleeping.
Yeah, well, I think
Second Amendment. Hold on, I had a
phone
call coming in.
Yeah, you disconnected for a second, but you're back.
Yeah, somebody tried to call me. Never mind. Just as somebody that appreciates the Second Amendment and understands like gun safety, the last place you want to be shooting a gun is in a neighborhood where people are in their houses safe and, not expecting to have a bullet fly through their home and kill their children.
Well, I mean, if we were to address that side of the problem, then we would have to look at why 13-year-olds are out on the streets, and then that would lead to, black fatherless homes, and that's just a conversation that we don't want to have. We want to have it, but they don't want to talk about that, so they have to deflect, and that's really what this is all about. When they deflect everything onto the police officers and onto the cops, and all cops are bastards, cops are evil, cops are racist, they have to do that to such an extreme degree, because if they don't put so much energy into deflecting the problem onto the cops, it's going to actually lead to an examination of black culture, and people are going to start asking questions. Why do we see black people getting shot while they resist arrest every single week now? Why do we see black people attacking Asians on camera every single week? What is the problem? What's going on in the black community? And that's exactly the question that people like this guy on Stereo are trying to avoid. They don't, again, goes back to the hyperfeminization of society. They don't want to face any consequences. They don't want to answer any questions. They just want to feel good in the moment and blame everything on externalities as opposed to themselves.
Yeah, blame it on the racist cops, because, all cops are racist, even the black cops and the Hispanic cops and the Asian cops. It's just cops in general are all racist, according to this guy.
Mm-hmm. And, okay, let's see. He's got another comment here.
Shame on y'all for even putting the young boy's name out there, and you don't care about it. Why don't you put the fucking pig's name that killed him out there? The criminal. The real criminal. The murderer.
Oh, I get it now. This guy thinks that he's on the jury in the court of public opinion. That's what's happening. He's decided there's a guilty verdict, and he knows that he's seen all the evidence, and he's made his decision. See, folks, this is exactly
Right?
what we're talking about. These people don't.
Love how he calls the
Good.
Love how he calls the cop the criminal, but not the young man that's discharging a firearm in a residential area, not a criminal. Like that guy whose nickname was, what was it, Lil Homicide?
Yeah.
He's not a criminal, but the cop that responds to a 911 call about shots fired in a neighborhood, yeah, that guy's the real criminal. Give me a break, dude.
Yeah, it's well, see, this is exactly the kind of stuff that we were trying to get on the stereo, and this is this guy's. I've talked to this guy, this exact person, this human being, probably about 100 times previously. And when I say this exact human being, I don't mean that specific set of DNA. I mean, he is an exact clone of millions of people who get their information from social media, CNN, MSNBC, things like that. They all act and think exactly the same way. They say the exact same things. They say bootlicker. They say pigs. They don't address any of the actual variables of the problem. They just, like I said, they present their verdict because he is on the court of public opinion. At least he thinks he is. He's hallucinating being on a jury. And the real jury is in the court, where they will actually look at all the evidence. They will look at important variables, things that actually matter, like did the officer feel like his life was in danger? Clearly the answer was yes. And the reality is, we're going to see, now this is public record, we'll be able to come back to this when this guy gets charged, or if he even gets charged, and when he goes through court, which one of our filters on reality is actually more accurate. Because one person is saying that he is a criminal, murderer, outright, straight up, without looking at any of the facts. And the other one is taking more of an actual legal, reality-based, objective view of everything and saying that, well, that's not really as clear as you think. But this is exactly why the title of the stream is Low IQ Pandemic, people. People in this country are incapable of comprehending complex issues. They see somebody getting shot by a cop, and their brain is incapable of thinking beyond pig, all cops are bastards, bootlicker. That's it. That is the extent of their mental capacity. They cannot comprehend the fact that the officer felt his life was in danger because he shot the person less than half of a second after the gun was visible in his hand. They can't. Their brain doesn't even work like that. They can't comprehend it. So it doesn't really matter how much you try to explain it to them. You can show them the video. You can show them the timestamps. You can show them everything. The brain will not absorb that information because we are in the middle of a low IQ pandemic.
Yeah, does not compute. I'm a robot. Does not compute. Only thing that it equates is racism. Has to be racism. Can't be anything else. Can't be the fact that he's 13 and shooting guns in a residential area. Yeah,
Bootlicker, cop lover. I mean, it's actual.
Yeah.
If you were to even try be generous and say that those are arguments, the arguments don't expand past like 3 words because they're just slogans. They're just they're the programmed phrases that he's been programmed to say and repeat over and over by his media sources. That's it. Let's go to, we got Hoaxes.
That guy was obviously very desperate to try and claim the moral high ground. Oh, you don't care. Do you care, bootlicker? No, you don't care about 13-year-olds. He doesn't care either. Doesn't give 2 shits. He just wants to play the victim, complain.
That's a great point.
And pretend he's got some kind of moral high ground.
Total
fraud.
He wants to go steal some Nikes. If he can gin up enough anger over some kid dying that he doesn't care about at all, that means free Nikes for him.
Yeah, get that 100% discount at the Nike store.
Use code BLM at checkout. John Steele.
What about the stereo commenter's bias? He's obviously anti-cop. He'll side with anybody. I mean, this is a great litmus test.
There you go.
You're going to defend a kid who shot into the residence where probably multiple innocent people live. And when confronted by the police, you pull a gun on the police and you get shot. And you're going to defend that guy. Dude, you honestly make me question whether the public at large should be allowed to vote.
Low IQ pandemic. John knows about the low IQ pandemic. That's what it is, people. This is the low IQ pandemic. I mean, it's really literally getting to the point where if you show them anything beyond a screenshot or like 6 seconds of a video, they can't critically think about it. I mean, look at Covington kids. They thought the Covington kids were assaulting this poor Indian guy because they didn't have the attention span to consume more than 20 seconds of video. George Floyd, they didn't take any time at all to look at whether the knee was on the neck, how George Floyd was breathing. We already know that in both cases, the prosecution and the defendants both basically admit that the knee was not on the neck in the trial. But again, video lied. I saw it with my own eyes. I saw it. And now again, with this, they see a screenshot and then they think to themselves, I know everything about this case that I need to know. Guilty. And that is the judgment that they hand down on the court of public opinion.
Thank you, that last caller, for saying that, because it's true. Like, you show your bias, like, by calling us ad hominems. I'm not out here like calling you an ad hominem or calling you a name. I'm just trying to present the facts and my understanding of the case. And he's like just upset that we're saying his name. Well, do you want us to say the police officer's name that fired the weapon and killed this young man? Because we will. It's out there. It's right here on CNN's article. If you really want to know, it's right there.
The name calling is a good point, because my rule is, and this is just a rule of any adult conversation really, if the first person to use a name calling instantly loses the argument. So he lost on the first comment because, again, he is programmed to say things like bootlicker, cop lover. He can't even help it. He literally can't help himself. Holly in Midlife in the YouTube chat says, she's pushing back on me a little bit, actually. Holly says, I disagree, Jeremy. They are capable. They're just so indoctrinated that it physically hurts to face anything that doesn't feed the ideology. See cult. Well, I mean, that's kind of what I mean, really, is that they're so deep into the ideology. They're so ego invested into the false idea of white supremacy, of racism, systemic racism. They're so ego invested. Their literal existence is tied to the existence of that idea. And if there's any indication that that idea isn't real, then it's their ego. They would experience ego death, which is basically equivalent to dying to them. So they have to. It has to persist. They can't not let their ego be tied entirely to these ideologies. And I think there's some truth to that, Holly. Later, Dave. Thanks for stopping by, buddy.
Steve in the YouTube chat says, come on, guys, seriously, we need cops to stop making people commit crimes. Yeah, because there's if we just get rid of cops, there's going to be absolutely no more crime, Steve. People are just going to stop committing crimes if we don't have cops.
Yep. Yeah, if we get rid of all the cops, magically all the crime is gone. Our UK correspondent, Moneypenny, is here.
Hey, guys. Sorry I missed the beginning of the show. UK correspondent here. How much do we feel that this, I don't know, increase in racially driven terrorism, contentious argument, media, all the rest of it, has been heightened by or because of the pandemic? I just wanted your opinion, really.
Well, for me, I don't think it's exacerbated much by the pandemic. I think that it is exacerbated by the one thing that nobody's looking at, and that is China. China sees this happening right now, and they are laughing their asses off. They're having a great time. They're probably propagating a lot. They're on Twitter saying, "Oh, justice for Adam." They're probably organizing these protests on Facebook, which we knew Russia was doing. China is having a great time because they know the internal strife is their method of destroying us. And people like that caller who was calling us bootlickers, he is completely going along with the Chinese, total war strategy of internal destruction via political unrest. So I would say the bigger variable is actually external attackers. We are at war. This is a concept called total war, where war is not just tanks and bombs and soldiers. War is every available means you can use to destroy your enemy, and right now the most effective way to do that is, well, I mean, you could argue that COVID may have been also a weapon. I don't think you can talk about the lab leak hypothesis or whether that was weaponized without getting demonetized on YouTube and have your channel deleted, but that's also potential. But in general, I think China is using this against us. I don't think the pandemic really exacerbated it too much. What do you think, Delaney?
I think the pandemic probably, I mean, it didn't help that people are forced to stay inside and consume nothing but the news narrative that they've been fed. And unfortunately, people in this day and age are too stupid to just unplug or just not stop watching. So would I say that the pandemic, I don't think it's a giant factor, but I think it's a definitely a key factor in it. But I think that this has been just brewing for years and years and years. And, like I said, people being locked up for a whole year or, sheltering in place for a year and being afraid of this virus has definitely put people on edge and makes them more reactive.
I think Osis nailed it in the YouTube comments. He said it's exacerbated by the lack of Trump. They need the boogeyman. I would give the victory to that to Osis on that one. It's correct. That is probably the largest factor here. Is that the racist narrative needs to persist somehow, and we even though we can't say this is Trump's America anymore, they do need the boogeyman to replace Trump, and in this case, it's the police, because Trump was very pro law enforcement, right? So it's kind of like a proxy for anti-Trumpism. Just attack the police. You're thereby attacking white people. You're attacking Trump. You're attacking conservatives. So yeah, I think you nailed it with that one, Osis.
Yeah, definitely, because all the cops are racist, just like Trump.
Yep.
They're hunting them down and shooting them at will because they're black, not because they're doing anything wrong, like shooting guns at 2 a.m. in a residential area.
Right. Okay, here we got I can't pronounce his name.
You know what white people are incompetent of or incapable of thinking about the complexity on how slavery had an effect on us today and still does. So, I mean, when you make these statements, just understand that you're judged with the same standard that you judge others with. So when you have people that's mad about the cops, and it's both black and white, but as far as white people goes, it's you guys killing your own. And if cops were to kill Chinese people or Arabs as much as they kill Negroes, people that is not them, that don't come from the same stock as them, it'd be considered an act of war, and they would have a major problem on their hand. But because, you guys are incompetent to think about slavery, you just look at black people like we're you guys, but we're not. Whole different nation.
Yes, that's a great point. Of course, I almost forgot for about 2 nanoseconds that black people were once slaves in this country. Thank you for reminding us.
Yeah, thanks for reminding us of that. It's not like we get that thrown in our face all the damn time. Thank you.
But he didn't really elaborate on how that would make the black communities less likely to to follow the law. I guess that's kind of the explanation that I'm looking for there. I'll acknowledge. Let's do this. I agree 100% with everything you said. Now explain to me how slavery makes a 13-year-old boy go out and shoot rounds at 3 a.m. in the morning in Chicago. That's the part that's missing in my head. So if you can explain that, the dots might connect for me, and I might be there. See, now the thing is, I'm agreeing with you calling me incapable of thinking about it, and I'm acknowledging that lack of information. And now all I need from you is to fill that gap. Tell me how slavery makes this 13-year-old boy go out and join gangs, call himself a little homicide, and then shoot guns in 3 a.m. in Chicago. And then maybe I can understand. I'll admit my ignorance.
Yeah, I mean, I admit my ignorance, but just because I don't share the same skin tone as somebody, that doesn't mean I'm not gonna comment about what I'm seeing going on in the community and try to help them by pointing out things like this. Just like, I point out things going wrong in the gay community that I belong to. I'm gonna call it out and like let people know, like, hey, this is not okay. We need to address this. I may not, you may not identify with me. I may not identify with you, but that doesn't mean we can't have a conversation about it.
Yeah. Oh, there's one really important fact that I think we left out of this, and that is that Adam was not black. He's Mexican American. So there's that too. But I don't know. Maybe slavery has some kind of like third party effects, like kind of like a secondary high. If you're around somebody who's smoking weed, you get high from that smoke. Maybe there's like a secondary slavery effect where you hang around black people and then you also feel the effects of slavery. I don't know. I'm just speculating here. Maybe he can explain it to us. We got Athenian is on the stereo. Let's see what she has to say.
What I really wonder is why they worry so much about so-called racism from police, but not the fact that if they try to strip the Second Amendment away from the Constitution, the cops are the ones that are going to take our guns. And they're going to do that because they're going to be trying to support their family. It's not going to be anything malicious. They're looking out for their own family. When their own livelihood is threatened, they'll do that. I think that's a more valid issue to be concerned about. If it even goes in that direction.
Yeah, see, that requires foresight and actually the ability to think into the future, and that's something that they don't have. They don't have that capability, and that reminds me of I went to a protest. I think it was an anti-gun protest. Yeah, it's one of my most viewed videos. It's got like 500,000 views on YouTube. There was a guy there that had a sign. He was trolling the rally, and he said, "Make Hitler take the guns again." That was his sign, and his point was exactly what you were saying, Athenian. His point was that if we're really going to follow through with this anti-Second Amendment thing, guess who's going to be taking the guns? The government. You want the government to have all the guns? Okay, well, obviously you haven't thought that one through.
But Jeremy, if they take away all the guns, the gun violence will go down, don't you know? That works so well for all these other countries that banned guns or took guns away from the people or did gun buybacks.
Sometimes I wish I had a dumpster IQ so that I could just live happily in a world that they live in, the fantasy land, and not have to have all these complex issues in my head, and not have to think so far into the future, and not have to think about multiple variables in each problem. I just want to have a dumpster IQ. Yeah, that'd be a much better life. The curse of the high IQ is real. We got Anit.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, it's getting really disturbing now how the media have revved up an entire generation of people to almost be like their foot soldiers. Whatever the media come out with, these people are just out there. Bosh, that's it. Start attacking police officers, start burning down buildings. It's very disturbing, and also, yeah, like you said, I mean, there's just something going on, in particular with the black community, because we're very comfortable with criticising any other community when we see problems in those communities. But as soon as you start going, well, hang on a minute, this is a little bit dodgy in your community, this is not quite right, boom, straight away you get labelled as a racist, and so the conversation ends. It just abruptly ends, and that is very disturbing. Like moving on in the future.
Agreed.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're forming their own kind of faction on their own. They're converting people into their soldiers via like basically AI. I mean, AI is already controlling these people. I think we're at a stage right now where we're watching the conversion of humans into AI-controlled cybernetic beings. And that guy that's calling people bootlickers and calling people cop lovers, do you know why he's doing that? Because the AI that programs the marketing for all these media outlets that generates the revenue, that gets the clicks, that shares the stories on the social media. That's all algorithmically generated stuff. They know that the anger gets the clicks. The clicks are what feeds them money, which makes them spread more stories about the same things, stories that make people angry, that turn them into foot soldiers, as he said. That is that's where the money is. The algorithm is already controlling these people. So he's right, man. We're already in a state where the media has kind of like their own private army, and whatever they point it to, it doesn't matter what the reality is. They can point that army at anything, and they will comply. They will attack. They will follow the orders.
Yeah, MK Ultra is alive and well, and we're seeing it with these communities that just are this dumbed down and believe everything the media tells them, and doesn't even do any investigating and just is mind controlled. So. Yeah, for those who think that MK Ultra died, it's not dead. It's alive and kicking, y'all.
It's bigger than ever.
Look it up.
John's got a follow-up.
I'd actually be interested to know what would warrant a police officer shooting somebody, specifically somebody of color. If they were already shot by the person of color and they're on the ground bleeding out, does that warrant? If they're in the middle of a mass shooting, are they allowed to shoot the person of color? What would warrant a shooting of a person of color? Please tell me.
That's a great question.
Well, yeah, I would say no, nothing, because black people never do anything wrong, ever. Never, ever. Black and brown people.
Yeah.
They're allowed to just do everything, and you just got to let them shoot you first.
That's what we talked about.
And even when they shoot you, you can't shoot them back.
Remember, black people don't have any agency. They don't control their own actions. They're actually all controlled by white supremacy. So if a black person is committing crime, it's because they're poor. That's always their explanation, right? And they're poor because of white supremacy. They don't have any control over their own actions. Adam was out in the street shooting guns at houses because of white supremacy, not because he was choosing to do it, not because he used conscious thought to pick up a gun and go out and hang out with his gangbanger buddies. It was all white supremacy. But he brings up a great question, is that, where's the line? They want to keep saying the line is getting really thin. The line is literally, we're at like a nanosecond level scale for where this line is. Watch the video again. Go to my Twitter page. I've got it in slow motion. Watch the video. We're literally talking about tenths of a second between when he had the gun in his hand and when he was turning to face the police officer. And these people are trying to say the cop was an executioner because he didn't have a gun in his hand at the nanosecond that he didn't get shot. I'm sorry, it's just hilarious.
Even though he had the gun like a second before he turned around.
No,
and the cop saw it.
Tenths of a second before he shot him. He had the gun in his hand. But this is how absurd these people are. They think that a cop, okay, here's how they could justify this as murder. If that cop was a RoboCop, then that would have been a murder. But we still have human being cops, okay? We don't have RoboCop yet. RoboCop would have been able, because he has a supercomputer in his head, to do the calculations in a slowed down time version of reality to see that there was not a gun in the hand still. A human being with adrenaline flowing through his body, who's been chasing a suspect, who knows has been firing a gun, he knows he's armed, can't make that split-second decision in 0.2 seconds. It's just not possible. And they want to say that because he can't make that 0.2 second split decision with adrenaline flowing through his body correctly, that he's a murderer. To me, no reasonable human being could ever say that that's a legitimate standard. And that's how the courts would handle it if this went to court. No reasonable human would ever... A reasonable person would fear for their life in that moment. But again, we don't operate in the court of law anymore. We operate in the court of public opinion. So...
yeah, due process is dead, and just gathering evidence and forming your opinion on actual evidence that's been, verified and proven to be true is dead. People see the hands up, don't shoot, and they automatically think that kid is innocent and wasn't doing anything wrong. Like, hate to break it to you folks, like, you can't fire a firearm at 2 a.m. in a residential area. That's dangerous and reckless and very much illegal. Like, he wasn't a saint. He wasn't doing anything like innocent. It wasn't like he was in at 2 a.m. washing people's cars and mowing people's lawns. He was firing a firearm in a residential area.
But that doesn't justify a death sentence, Delaney. Which is exactly what they would say.
Oh, right, yeah. Like, I'm sorry, like, you do something like that, like, you reap what you sow. You got to accept the consequences. And
here's another variable that they don't want to think about. And Dari brings up a point in chat. He says he's a damn good shot. And you do have to acknowledge the effectiveness of the officer. He fired one shot, and then he immediately tried to render first aid. He didn't fire 20 shots and then say, "Oh yeah, that's what you get, you little piece of trash," and then like spit on the body or anything like that. He fired one single shot. I don't think I've ever seen any police shooting video where an officer fired only one shot. That's incredibly rare.
Right.
So.
Yeah, most of the time they have to like unload their entire magazine on them in order to get them to go down. Especially if the dude's like hopped up on meth or PCP or something.
They unload the magazine because they're high on adrenaline. They just have to. They have to pull the trigger. Pop, 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 pop. This guy, one shot, very calculated, well placed, and then he immediately rendered aid.
Got him in.
He didn't go over there and just like start kicking the kid or fire 10 shots because he was pissed. Okay, but again, those are variables that the low IQ, dumpster IQ people can't. There's no room in their brain for those to fit. So let's go to. We got another comment here.
So this would be my question, since everybody has a low IQ and the pandemic and racism. Let's talk about feeling. Are you happy to see? Are you happy that this event played out the way it is? So therefore, it could be said that the young guy was in the wrong, and the police finally had a situation where they had killed somebody, and obviously the person was just so wrong, and it was a black person this time. Do you feel happy to know that? Do you feel happy about the situation? How do you feel? How do you feel towards the situation? How do you feel? Are you excited that this is a situation that you could say, okay, well, this situation is a little bit more correct. This is not racism. This is actually a police killing. How do you feel about it? What's the emotionalism? Because I think that we have a problem with people knowing how to feel.
I think we have a problem with people feeling too much.
Well, if you were watching the video, you were seeing me kind of shake my head the entire time I was listening to that comment, because I don't think this caller knows that we literally started the show on the topic of hyper-feminization of society. That is literally the most feminine response that you could have to this incident. It doesn't, let's not talk about the legal aspects of what happened. Let's talk about how you feel. And my answer to your question, sir, is that I'm a man. I don't feel things, and that's not how I navigate the world based on how I feel. I base on objective reality. And if I were to take a random guess, I would say, don't take offense to this, but you were probably raised predominantly by a woman to have that mindset, because men don't think like that. People who again, that's exactly why we have a hyper-feminized society. Even Delaney, you're a woman, and you acknowledged immediately that feeling is not the proper way to go about this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we have riots and stuff, because people feel too much. They don't want to look at the facts of the situation.
Yeah, I feel like you feel too badly about this. Like, it's sad that this young man lost his life, of course, but to react so weirdly towards somebody that you don't even know, like, it's not like he's your nephew or your cousin or your brother, for people to react so they just absorb it all so much just because, like, oh, he kind of has the same skin color as me, is just so illogical. Like, stop feeling so much and listen to all sides, and don't just feel off of the first picture that you see from the incident. Look at the whole thing play by play and think about it logically. Don't feel so much.
Feeling is exactly why that kid died. I'll say it. Feeling is why he died, because we don't want to address the problems in these communities that led to him being on the streets at 3 a.m. firing a gun, because it feels bad to address those problems. The problem with feeling is that you don't want to do things that feel bad. That would be one of the things that you would have to address if you really wanted to solve this problem. But we don't want to because it feels bad. It feels bad to ask the question, why is this 13-year-old kid running around with a gun? That feels bad, but you're not going to stop the next one from happening unless you actually ask that question and come to a resolution on that. So feeling is going to perpetuate this problem, not solve it.
Holly Midlife in the YouTube chat says, this is exactly how I feel. I feel sad that a child had to die because his parents were absent. That's exactly how I feel. I feel sad that this young man was so misguided in his life that he is out at 2 a.m. firing shots in his neighborhood, that the police had to get called on him to resolve the issue. And when this whole thing could have been avoided if this young man had some proper guidance in his life and parents that actually were decent parents to guide him and like teach him, like going out at 2 a.m. is not a good idea.
Yeah, but again, it feels bad to talk about that, so we can't talk about it. So, all the cops were not charged with any crime for the guy dying when they put the spit bag over his head as he was flipping out in the middle of the street. News just released today he was high on PCP. Oh yeah, no, we talked about that one, Dari. So I think Daniel, I forgot the guy's name, but he was naked in the street, high on PCP, and people on the left called it a mental health crisis, and they said that he was treated improperly because he was experiencing a mental health crisis, but they used that as a euphemism. They didn't want to say he was high on PCP and, being violent, but we call it a mental health crisis. But again, why do we call it a mental health crisis? Because it feels better. We don't want to say he was high on PCP. That feels bad. So again, yet another case of how feelings and operating primarily off of feelings in a hyper-feminized society only will perpetuate this problem. Let's go to, we got a follow-up from previous caller.
No, I don't think it's the fact that they don't think it's necessarily wrong. I think in a lot of circumstances and cases, you have innocent, and you can't get mad at black people for sticking up for their own people. Just like you can't get mad at white people for sticking up for their own people. So you have instances where, there are innocents being harmed. This might not be the case, but if we have innocents being harmed, you guys need to start suffering too. It's only right. Right? So, I mean, it's just a way to look at it. But particularly, I don't really take sides because I think black people and white people are both equally dumb as fuck.
I'll agree with you on that one, but I do have to disagree.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree with you on that.
I disagree with sticking up for your own people. That is absolutely incorrect, and you have to call out the bad apples in your side and distance yourself from them. Why do black people keep lifting up these criminals? And we saw with George Floyd, they were painting murals of him with an angel, like an angel's halo around his head. Dude, he was about to drive high on fentanyl. He could have killed somebody in the car. He's a previous offender. He held up a pregnant woman with a knife. He's a criminal. You need to call those people out and say, no, that doesn't represent our community. This guy firing shots in the neighborhood, criminal again. I saw just again on Twitter, I saw a picture of him with an angel's halo around his head. Oh, Adam, you were a little angel. No, dude, he's a criminal. You need to distance yourself from those people. You need to let the rest of the world know. If you really think that the white people in America and the white supremacists and the whole system is looking at you as just a monolith, as black people, why wouldn't you do everything you can to try and separate yourself from the visual of criminality that all these people are associated with? That's the question I would ask. You do want to call people out. I don't know. Like white people don't stick up for Jeffrey Dahmer. Yeah, great point, Holly. We don't stick up for white people. White people love taking dumps on white people, dude. I mean, look at the Democratic Party and look at how we always rag on each other for the smallest little things. We call each other out based on the behavior, not based on your skin color, dude. That's not.
Yeah, that's like the most illogical thing I've ever heard. Like, I'm going to stick with this person even though they've done wrong. Like, no, like that's the same. Like, oh my God, like that's so illogical. So you're just going to go down with the ship just because they share the same skin color as you? Like, that's not a very self-preservative mindset that I'm hearing from this young man.
Yeah, the proper way to handle these is to say, look at the life of criminality that this XYZ person lived, son. That is what you don't want to be. That's a conversation that's never happening. What the conversation is look at this person over here. He was such an angel. You should try to mirror his, he's a role model for you. Somebody in YouTube chat said role model. I think you hit it right on the head. They turn these people into role models. These are criminals. Why would you ever want your a criminal to be a role model? But again, the analysis doesn't go that deep. It's just the fact that they are a victim, so then they therefore automatically, instantly gain role model status. They have to lift them up as victims. Yeah, turn a little homicide into a role model, and let me know how your kids turn out.
Yeah, Lil Homicide, God's favorite angel, as Holly in YouTube chat says.
Moneypenny is back.
So I'm going to be blunt. Low IQ pandemic. Love the title.
Hell yeah.
But I want to put it in context and ask you guys across the pond to give an opinion. In terms of the least IQ activity that has taken place in the United States and in the UK to do with this pandemic, I'd say the UK was most definitely Boris Johnson, our Prime Minister, shaking hands with a load of people who'd got COVID about a week after COVID arrived in the UK, and subsequently the whole of the British government pretty much going down flat with COVID. In the United States, I think the idea that each state were bidding against each other like a little eBay competition to try and buy all the ventilators, and thereby bidding the price of ventilators up 2, 3, 4 times the prices were originally, is daft. You guys, what do you think was the lowest IQ event so far from this pandemic?
Oh man, I don't know. That's tough because there's just so many to pick from.
I remember that Boris Johnson incident where he was shaking the hands. I was like, whoa, all right, this guy, he's making a hard stand right here. He does not care about COVID. And then, of course, he got it, and then he had to go to the hospital. So I definitely remember that. But I would say it's just the simple fact that nobody wants to talk about in the public the number one risk factor for COVID. Even up to a year later, we're not talking about how fat people are the most at risk, and being obese is the number one risk factor for having severe consequences from this. We still don't want to tell anybody that. And yet we're wondering why people are dying still. And Fauci's never even said, hey, maybe you should get on the treadmill, you fatty. Nope, not even once. Didn't even suggest it. Oh, yes, no, Anthony got it in chat. Anthony, you win. It's the dancing nurses. You've seen the dancing nurses, right, Moneypenny? We've got TikToks and videos of what's the word where you choreographed dancers in hospitals, nurses who, I mean, we're told simultaneously that they're overburdened and that they're working at maximum capacity and that they're just falling on the front lines left and right because they can't stand the workload. And then we see videos of them doing choreographed dances in the hospital. So yeah, that was pretty retarded too.
Yeah, that was pretty dumb. But then Synergy Force in the YouTube chat says
that's a good one
putting COVID
too.
Positive elderly into nursing care facilities when the data was already clear it was the virus which loved to kill 70 plus year olds.
That's a really good
I think
one.
that was pretty low IQ.
That was really bad.
That was pretty low.
Single-handedly killed thousands of old people with that decision. Yeah, that was Governor Cuomo in New York, by the way. So yeah, thanks for the question, Moneypenny.
Yeah. There's just so many to pick from. Like, I think just the whole face diaper, program that people were fed was a big low IQ.
What about the toilet paper? You remember
convincing an entire
Remember the toilet paper shortages? The toilet paper
surges?
Yeah,
and the toilet paper shortages. Oh man, yeah. That this whole last year has just been low IQ event after low IQ event after low.
That's
like
why
it's hard to rank which one was the lowest.
That's why we're talking about a low IQ pandemic, and I think Moneypenny just misinterpreted it slightly, but we're talking about the pandemic. There's the COVID pandemic, but there's also a pandemic of low IQ people in the West right now, and we're seeing that manifest itself all over right now. And the most pertinent example of that for us anyway in the news is this Toledo shooting. It is the Dante Wright shooting, and I'm sure they'll have a low IQ collective breakdown once Chauvin has his verdict, which could potentially be next week, by the way, guys. The jury deliberations begin on Monday. Closing arguments are Monday. And we could have a verdict on that by the end of next week. So just be aware of that. If you're in Minnesota, maybe time to take a vacation.
Right. Let's go to Idaho or something for the time being while they deliberate in Minnesota.
John Steele's back.
And by the way, we can all agree there are bad cops. There are bad shootings.
Yes.
I mean, on the police activity YouTube channel, you could see plenty of shootings where, these people didn't need to be shot. Maybe they were driving away, and maybe they were driving somewhat towards the cops, and, they can say, well, they drove towards the cops. It was a deadly weapon, the vehicle, so we shot the guy who was driving the car. Maybe they didn't need to be killed. I mean, there are countless examples, but this is not one of them.
Of course, yeah. I mean, just like with everything, there are bad people with bad intentions in every walk of life. There are bad doctors, there are bad lawyers, there's bad accountants. There's just bad in every walk of life. But to just generally blanket statement say like, oh, all cops are racist because of, the few bad eggs is just such a low IQ, just low energy mindset to have.
It's a great point that John brings up because I don't like cops. I really don't like cops. But see that I'm not going to submit to that whole kind of argument of, oh, you love cops, you're a cop lover. The guy who called us cop lovers is probably not in the chat anymore. But I don't like cops at all. I don't feel safe around cops. I know that cops, when I see them, are going to try and pin me with whatever crime that they possibly can. They're going to try to get me. They're going to try to lie to me. They're going to try to get me to give them information that will lead to tickets. I've had terrible interactions with police. I don't like them in general. No, I don't. But I don't have to go there. I don't have to bring that up to have an argument in this particular case, and that's why that this is a low IQ thing, because your feeling on cops is the least relevant thing in this entire conversation about all these shootings. Nobody cares. I never once brought up the fact that I don't like cops when I'm talking about my opinion on these things. But, we can't, unfortunately, we can't stick in the objective reality world. We have to always go into calling names and cop lovers and bootlickers and how do you feel and stuff like that. I mean, just is the simulation playing games with us? We're literally talking about hyperfeminization and how feelings are bad almost in every single stream, and then this guy comes in and says, "Oh, but how do you feel?"
Yeah, he was just trying to bait us into saying like that we're happy that this young man died. Like, no, nobody's happy that young man got shot and killed by the police officer. Just like I'm not happy that the young man didn't have parents that cared enough about him to make sure that he is well versed enough in gun knowledge to know that you shouldn't be firing a gun in a residential area.
Yeah, we have feelings about these incidents. Believe it or not, we do. I mean, even as a man, I do have feelings. I just don't use those to gauge how I navigate reality. I don't use those to gauge what the outcome of this particular situation is. Those are always secondary or tertiary variables. So let's go to
absolutely.
We got another follow-up from this
guy.
guy.
You saying that we all right, I don't remember exactly what you said, so don't take my words too personal. But you pretty much said that, black people tend to victimize themselves under the authority of white supremacy. And I would tell you that what white people did was throw a stone that hit us, and it hurt real bad, and it still hurts, and our eyes swollen. But you hit your hand, so we don't know which one of you motherfuckers threw that bitch, but we know it was one of you. That's all we know. That's all I'm saying, man. So you can run. You can give all these not even just mediocre intelligent comments, but bro, it's not working, bro. It's not working, bro. It's not. You're speaking to dumb people at the end of the day, man.
All right, Harry. I think this is. So I asked him to tell me how the white supremacy leads to the 13-year-old shooting at 3 a.m. in the night. I think this is his answer to that. Let's listen.
You asking me to explain how slavery has something to do with a 13-year-old boy and a gun and a run-in with the police? I'ma just be 100% honest with you, man.
Do it.
What happened to that little boy? It was bound to happen to somebody, and that's the reality. Just like back in the day when you was bound to get hung for not acting right, even though you don't know the laws. They want to let us read and write. Now it's out there, but if the education isn't proficient enough and it's not enough jobs, people drop out of school and do what they have to do. So it's all uniquely modified to target us in very non-aggressive ways, but they end up being deadly nonetheless.
I'm gonna be generous, and I'm gonna agree with one aspect of what he said because it wasn't too coherent in my opinion. But he did mention education, and I would agree with you right there, sir, on that. And I think that's somewhere where we could have some common ground. I would proclaim, might be a somewhat controversial stance, but I would say, and I want to see if you agree with me, sir, whether or not the educational system in this country is the source of all of our quote-unquote racism right now. Because if that kid had a good education, do you think he'd be out on the streets shooting a gun? If he had teachers that were engaged, he didn't hate school, and he wasn't, his school wasn't just full of people who didn't care, people who were just getting a paycheck, stuff like that. Would this happen?
Parents at home that actually had parents at home that actually were engaged in his life and paid attention to him and cared. Like, I'm sure that his mother cared that he was gone and out at 3 a.m, but if he had a father in the household that taught him right from wrong and guided him a little bit better, do you think that would have made a difference?
That would be the ideal solution, actually having a dad in the home and having a dad to raise this kid. But then that gets back to personal choice and feeling bad because we don't want to talk about how these single moms are out here raising kids, and we know the statistics behind how the children of single parents turn out incredibly bad compared to children with 2 parents. But if you were to ask what the solution would be from a government perspective, the first place I would look is the educational system and the teachers' unions, who are probably the number one source of all of the quote-unquote racism in this country today. If you fix the teachers' unions, you fix the schools, you would fix almost all of what you perceive to be racism. And I'm being generous with that answer because, to be honest with you, man, there was 20 different ways I could have attacked you personally on that because the comment wasn't very cohesive, but I'm trying to opt for an angle where we can find an agreement. Socking Horse in chat says this guy's trying to be a Michael Dyson. But maybe a very low tier Michael Dyson, yeah.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I get, like, I'm trying to understand where he's coming from when he said that, like, white people threw the first stone. So your solution is to just hunt down white people and blame all white people because of past injustice. Mm-hmm. Like, the smarter solution would be, instead of just hating on the one white person that threw the stone, it's like, why don't you all build a fucking wall and to make sure you don't get hit by any more stones? Work together to build something that is actually of substance instead of destructive.
Is it really true that white people threw the first stone, though? Because I'm pretty sure, and correct me on my history if I'm incorrect here, but black people were enslaving other black people in Africa, and then black people sold the black people to the white people. We didn't enslave anybody. We just purchased them from black people. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but in that particular case, I would say that black people threw the first stone by capturing the people with nets and ropes and then selling them to Europeans. But again, feel free to correct me.
No, No, that's not right, Jeremy. That's not correct. Black people had never done any injustice to other black people. Never, ever, ever. It's not like there's slavery still going on in the continent of Africa.
Mm-hmm. I apologize for bringing that up. I will accept my 20 lashes. Let's go to...
You need to change your name, too.
Yeah, Athenian.
In the past, natural selection would have killed off all these overly sensitive fuckers.
Oh, yes. Oh,
See,
my God.
well, I mean, she is absolutely correct. But the problem is we have too many buffers from natural selection forces in society right now, so they get to thrive. And now we're dealing with the hyperfeminization of society because of that. So, great point, Athenian. And we could have a whole entire stream just on that subject right there. Paul B.
Oh, goodness.
Feelings argument is absurd. Did the narrative corporate media care about Ashley Babbitt on January 6th? Does anyone care about all of the non-black victims of senseless police violence?
Ooh.
No? Okay, so we're at a feeling standoff, which leaves only the facts, which one side assiduously ignores. So when you go on feelings, you're just left with nothing.
That's a great point. Yeah, nobody cares about police shootings when they're against white people, like Tony Timpa, for example. I didn't see any marches for that guy, but we're led to believe that our feelings are centered around the cops. Doesn't seem to hold true. It's not very consistent, and it's not a very good base for making decisions in society. So thank you, Paul, for that. I think that was synergy.
Yes. That was a really good comment, because he's right. Like, nobody gives a shit about all the white people that get killed by police, like unarmed white people that get killed by police. They don't give a shit. There's no marches. There's no burning down buildings and looting Nike stores and, taking from business owners over that.
Yeah, if you want to talk about feelings, here's the sad reality of all these deaths, is that the only thing that anybody cares about with all of these is how they can use it for their own personal gain. I mean, we see Reverend Jesse Jackson flying in to give a speech every time one of these guys dies. How much do you think he gets paid for that? How many more houses do you think the Black Lives Matter founder is going to buy after these marches coming up in Minneapolis? Because the donations are spiking. By the way, Breonna Taylor's mom called Black Lives Matter frauds because they did nothing for her. They simply used her death to monetize their ideology, make personal gain off of it. So that's my case in point for that. If you don't believe me, go ahead and look that up. It's a new story that just came out. Breonna Taylor's mom calling out Black Lives Matter for being frauds because the jig is up. We all know that they just use these deaths. They use the death and suffering of black people for their own personal gain. That's all it really is.
Mm-hmm.
TQ.
My question would be, do anybody know the people that painted the picture of George Floyd? And are those people that painted the picture of George Floyd, do they really represent the black community? Because I know of one picture that I seen that had George Floyd, and the person that was painted is not of our community. Though he is a person that looks like us, but just because a person looks like a black person doesn't necessarily mean they are. That's another truth that's going to exist, and those are the type of people that during slavery, you had the master that would get another black person to use a whip against another person, and just because he black, like the rest of the people on the plantation, he ain't carrying out black consequences, black situations. So just because the painting of him was did doesn't mean it was by people that
Okay.
Oh, okay. So I guess it's not just a skin color; it's an ideology now, being black. Okay, my bad.
I'm laughing because I can't keep track. I mean, one guy's telling me that he's got to stick up for his people, and they're all the same skin color. This guy's saying that skin color doesn't actually delineate their people. It's really about your ideas. I'm having conflicting opinions presented to me here. I'm just having confusion and trying to digest those. But I think actually I'm gonna be generous. I'm gonna take his point and put a little spin on it in his favor. And I was gonna say, I bet the people who painted those pictures of George Floyd as an angel and Adam Toledo as an angel, even though they were both criminals. They're probably white females. It's really white people in most of these cases with a lot of white guilt who are enacting these kind of, anti-racist or whatever you want to call them actions. And that should beg an interesting question: is how much white guilt is enough? You've already got Biden in office. He was put there by white guilt. You've got control over all the universities. You've got control over all the media. That they're all completely dominated by white guilt, who are all feeling guilt over slavery. How much more do you want? What else could we possibly give you? You have control. People with white guilt have control over every institution right now. I don't really know how much more you could ask for, aside from literally having white people like shine your boots and, kiss your feet. What? Literally, tell me, systematically, logistically speaking, white guilt is already controlling this country. What more do you want?
40 acres and a mule, Jeremy. That's what they want. That's what they were promised. That's what they deserve.
I'd like 40 acres, actually. I'm gonna get some 40 acres in Tennessee or something. Moneypenny's back.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, guys, UK correspondent here with nerdy injection into your conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we've got all these various things kicking off, none of which are pleasant, all of which seem heightened.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at it from a scientific, medical, rational, logical point of view. Okay. We already know by a Yale study last week of 236,000 patients' records that a third of people who get COVID and suffer longer-term effects, which is several million, I know it's over 2 million in the UK, are likely to have mental health conditions and neurological conditions afterwards. And that's in addition to being locked down. And we already know the black community, 300% more likely to get COVID. Is that contributing to this type of thing?
Oh, her sound magically fixed itself right at the end of that. That was nice. So actually, Moneypenny, we try to look at everything from a scientific perspective on the show. We talked about a study that came out a few weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, we talked about it, looking at the media and how different political ideologies react to media, particularly negative stories. And we've seen how negative stories incentivize people on the left. It creates an emotional stimulus to take action, which therefore increases their probability that they will consume media, and particularly negative media, which creates a feedback loop of leftists consuming media and then trying to take action about it. I think that would partially explain why we have, for example, riots, why we have a lot of mask anxiety and things like that. And that also leads into them feeling mental illnesses like depression and anxiety. I read that study actually that showed that the COVID people with long-term effects have mental effects, because I wanted to know what those were, but it turns out in most of the cases it's just depression or anxiety. And I don't, I was expecting to see something like there's some small cases of hallucinations and things, but I think what happens is they feel like, and this is a theory, just spitballing out loud, thinking out loud here, this is what we do, they were victimized by this virus that has been so hyped up in the media that it's just the fact that they have it is causing mental trauma to them. The anxiety isn't a direct result of having the COVID. The anxiety is a result of being bombarded with negative press about it and then getting it. That would be my theory on that.
Yeah, and also, I'm not a science person. Like, I love science, but I'm not like a doctor or anything. But when you're stressed and you're vulnerable like that, that also can weaken your immune system and just weaken everything around you. So I think the mental stress that they're putting on themselves, because they're putting it on themselves, in all honesty, by sitting there and consuming all this media instead of just going out and living life and not worrying about if they don't get COVID. But if you're sitting there constantly stressed and making yourself weak, when you do actually go out and, become part of the world again, you're going to be so much more susceptible to this virus, to this illness. And it's going to affect you a lot worse than if you were just unplug, turn it off, and just live your life.
And so this ties directly in with the study that I wanted to talk about. So thank you, Moneypenny, for kind of giving a segue into this. They did a study, I think it was a Gallup study that just came out. They looked at political affiliations, and what they asked people, how many COVID cases do you think are hospitalized, like percentage-wise? What percentage of COVID cases lead to the hospital? And the results of this prove exactly everything that we're saying right here. Liberals said that they think 50% of COVID cases get hospitalized. That is a gross exaggeration of the numbers.
Overstatement.
Gross overstatement of the numbers, because again, you know that they cannot stop consuming media that is hyping up. And again, on top of this, we saw CNN with the Project Veritas undercover videos, the technical director of CNN, or one of the technical directors, admitting on video that they pump the numbers up on their channel to get more viewers, to keep people's attention. The picture is all coming together, folks. The media pumps the stuff up. It grossly exaggerates what's happening in reality in the heads of the leftists and the heads of the liberals. They think 50% of cases are hospitalized. They probably think 25% of people die from this thing, which is not even close. I think in reality, under the age 49, I think the last time I looked, the number was 2.5% hospitalization rate. So they have what is that, 25 times? No, about 20 times. 20 times higher. Their reality is 20 times worse than actual reality. That's it's shown in scientific studies and in surveys. They think reality is 20 times worse than it actually is. And that's because why? Because of all the media that they consume. And that explains why they're so Nazi-ish about masks. It explains why they're so Nazi-ish about lockdowns, because they don't have the reality view of what's actually happening. They have this catastrophized version of reality in their heads on all issues, not just COVID, on black people too. They asked black people, we talked about this last time, they asked liberals how many black people they thought got shot by cops on a yearly basis, like unarmed black people. Some of them were saying like 1,000, hundreds.
Yeah.
In reality,
I was just about to bring that up.
It's about 10. So in every aspect of society, all these negative things, which is exactly why they react this way to Adam Toledo's shooting, to bring it straight back to that, they are programmed to see reality in a vastly worse light than it actually is. Everything is worse. Everything is catastrophized, and they are riddled with mental illness because of being bombarded. I mean, you can't blame them. Can you really blame them if they were bombarded with this type of information? If you literally thought that 50% of COVID cases were hospitalizations, then if I genuinely believe that, yeah, I'd probably be a little Nazi-ish about masks too. If I thought this was literally Ebola flying around, I would tell people to put masks on too. So you kind of have a little sympathy for these people, because they are mind controlled by the media in all of these issues. It's not just COVID. It's not just racism. It's everything that we're seeing. And that mind control is the reason why it's so effective, and why they're so open to it is because they do what? Prioritize feelings over facts. The hyperfeminization is what allows all of this stuff to happen. I'm just tying all of these topics together, and I'm just like wizardry. I'm just crafting all these things. They all tie in. I'm trying to let you guys see the bigger picture here, because they are all related.
Yeah, they are definitely related. And I mean, the number one thing that links them all together is just our media that just hypes up everything and amps it up and makes you just catastrophize, gives you that I don't even know the proper word, but just makes catastrophization of everything. Like you said, like people honestly believe that thousands of black people are getting shot and killed by the police, when in actuality black people are getting shot and killed by police, when in actuality there's more black people killing other black people than black people getting killed by police. They don't want to address that issue. They just want to point you in this direction, so that way you ignore this direction over here.
Dari in YouTube chat says the low IQ people swallowed it hook, line, and sinker. Many of the middle-aged white women was a large portion of Biden supporters. Well, yeah, again, Dari's tying it right back into the actual topic of the night, the low IQ pandemic. The low IQ pandemic is why we have this pandemic. Literally, quite literally, this is why this pandemic is a thing. Because we have low IQ. We don't want to tell people to lose weight. We don't want to look at the actual risk factors involved. We just want to say, put the masks on. Wait for the vaccine. So thank you for that question, Moneypenny. As you can see, it generated quite a bit of conversation for us. And that's exactly what we like. Athenian's lined up here. Let's see if she drops another bomb on us.
Patricia Dickinson probably put it best in that black people have a crabs in a bucket type of mentality. Like, if you have a bucket full of crabs and one tries to get out, the rest will often pull it right back in, with the mentality that if one's gonna die, they're all gonna die.
That's a good point.
I mean, yeah, like the guy that before that said like, oh, I'm gonna stick up for my people. Yeah, like he's kind of right. Like she's right about that. Like he's living proof of it. That just because like they look like him and have the same colors of skin, it's like I'm gonna pull you down and make sure that you think like me and do what I say, because that's what we're taught to do.
This is even better. Because the way that they do this, the methodology by which they discourage achievement and accomplishment and intelligence is by calling black people who try to exceed, they call them white. If they read books, if you're acting white, that's what they say. They actually call them white. They say they're implying that you're betraying your race because you're trying to be successful, because you're not adopting and completely falling in line with the victimhood narrative that you're white. So they're crabs in a bucket, absolutely. And the way that they use the crabs in the bucket mentality is by calling each other white. Man, thank you, Athenian.
Like that's the worst. Like that's the worst insult to be called white. Like, okay, fine, I'm white. Like that's what I would say. It's like, okay, I'd rather be white, I guess.
Well,
like,
I mean,
what do you want me to say?
When you act white, you become Barack Obama. You become, Thomas Sowell. Thomas Sowell is white as hell. And guess what? His skin color didn't stop him from becoming a wildly successful author and economist. It's because of his mentality. But we don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, we don't want to talk about Ben Carson, Condoleezza Rice, Jesse Lee Peterson, just any of. I mean, hell,
they all thought white.
Want to like give credit to somebody on the left or Oprah. Oprah, for crying out loud. Oprah, super white, super white.
According to them.
Morgan Freeman, whitest of them all.
Yep.
Yeah, according to them.
All right, let's. We got Susie Sitcom in the stereo.
Oh my God, I didn't even know they had a hard hat on stereo.
Yeah.
What a crazy costume. All right, guys. My name is Susie Sitcom. Just stopping through. Love you the way your avatars look between the hard hat and the soft hat. Yeah, it's pretty hot looking. A little YMCA kind of vibe.
Well, thank
you.
Bye,
guys.
Thank you, Susie.
Bye.
We got a lot. There's a lot of bombs dropping on me. That's why I got the hard hat on, because I gotta protect my noggin from the
hell yeah,
the commenter bombs that we get. It's a work area.
Yeah, and also Jeremy's a builder.
That's right.
He's got to keep his head. He's got to keep his brain safe because he's super smart. He doesn't want to damage any of those neurons firing in his brain at all.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. Jennifer Walker.
It would seem more to me that it was just the parents being a little too trusting, because wasn't there a 21-year-old guy arrested at the same time that, or after that kid was killed?
Yeah, I think he was.
Yes, there was a 21-year-old.
Yeah, he was with a 21-year-old. You can see it if you watch the body cam footage, the full version of it anyway. You can see the cop shove him to the ground as he pursues the 13-year-old kid. So, let's see. Moneypenny's back.
Okay, guys, hold the front page. Remember, I was asking about the most idiotically thick, low IQ ideas that people could have during a pandemic.
Yes.
As you've probably heard, and this is very serious actually, the double mutant variant of COVID-19 from India is now attacking a couple of areas across the UK, and reportedly we've got 600 or 700 people who are suffering with this variant, and 73 people who are quite poorly. India looks as though it's having incredibly bad symptoms, ragingly fast spreading virus. So what should we do? Oh, Boris Johnson has decided he's going to India next week. I mean, my gosh, I can't believe it. It's ludicrous.
Oh, that is very ludicrous. That's wow.
He's doing it again.
Sounds like he wants it. Yeah, he wants to get COVID again. He wants to get this double mutant strain.
Of course, there's going to be mutants into perpetuity, which is probably why. Well, you also saw, who was it? I can't remember which manufacturer came out and said that you'll probably require a third dose. Did you see that? Now they want you to take a third dose after your. Yeah, they're like, oh well, you need a. I mean, they already admitted that they don't last beyond a year anyway, so you're gonna have to get at least. Now you're gonna get what, 3 shots every year? Is that what they're trying to do? Oh Jesus! But variants, guys, variants came out, so you got to get.
Got a bubble.
More shots, new shots every year. Jesus. Athenian.
Yeah. And a double.
Also, Greek people were.
Double. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Play it.
All right.
Also, Greek people were slaves in Egypt long before black people were slaves in America. I want to say she was the wife of Charaxos or the daughter, I can't remember which, was a Greek slave. He was a Greek man that lived in Egypt. He was the poetess Sappho's brother. I mean, like, this information is easy for anyone to find. Like, it's not hard to look up how white people were enslaved long before black people were, by black people, because they always insist Egyptians were black, which a lot of them were. Most of them were. They were really more multi-ethnic by the end there, really. Like, more from antiquity and into AD or whatever. I can't remember it all, but
everyone in history is black, according to those black supremacist people. Jesus was black. Queen Elizabeth was black. The Egyptians were black. It's a funny. I like hearing that.
We all come from black people.
Mm-hmm.
We all descend from Africa.
I mean, I'm pretty sure. I think that's true. But Synergy says, "Damn, dragging antiquity into this chat."
Not you.
Let's see. Moneypenny's back.
Yeah,
So I really appreciate your own interpretation of the Yale study that looked at COVID and anxiety. Although sadly, there is a completely different explanation for the anxiety and depression. And the other thing that came out was complex PTSD, which is down to repeated trauma. So people with long COVID have a tachycardia, very high heartbeat, racing heartbeat so fast, most people are unable to sleep much. They feel if they do go to sleep, they won't wake up because they think they're about to have a heart attack, which, as you know, was the first thing that happened to somebody with COVID in the United States. When they died, is their heart literally exploded. The blood is so thick it can't go through the body properly. So the anxiety is due to the physical distress, which is caused by the hypertension, the rapid heartbeat, the swollen joints, the swollen body parts.
Yeah, that would do it.
Yeah, stress is a killer, and not getting good sleep is definitely causes more stress and more wear and tear on your body too. So makes sense.
Now see, the tachycardia thing is like, why does a respiratory illness cause all these crazy side effects? Why does a respiratory virus cause your blood to coagulate? Why does a respiratory illness cause your heart to beat rapidly? And all these other crazy things we've heard about too. That's the question I have in my head. But that makes perfect sense, Moneypenny. I didn't know that they had like a persistent rapid heartbeat after that. That would definitely keep me up too.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and that's why we have her to, interpret stuff that we don't understand, because she's the smart one, because she's from the UK. She's got to be somewhat smart.
She is our resident COVID expert, so yeah, she's going to be dropping the facts. Tyler in YouTube chat says her comments are going to give me PTSD. Yeah, he says he's squeamish. I mean, it's a little terrifying. Let's see. I'm pretty sure the first hominids enslaved the poor Neanderthals. Yeah, I mean, we don't want to talk about how slavery is just ubiquitous throughout history. Everybody's been enslaving anybody they possibly can. I mean, I'm pretty sure civilization, even the first cities, were all built entirely off of slave labor. But, well, I mean, if we were just to reverse all of that history, we would basically all be back into pre-agrarian societies where we don't even have herds of animals to eat. So we don't want to do that. Of course, we do want to reap the benefits of having been brought to America. Speaking of the black people here, they were brought to America. They don't want to talk about the benefits of that. They just imply that they would rather be sent back to Africa and have slavery never happen, which I don't think is actually the case. If you presented, Delaney, here's a question for you. If you presented every black person in America with the opportunity to be sent back to Nigeria to undo the effects of their slavery, because that's where they would still be right now if they were never captured by other black people and sold to white people, how many of them, percentage-wise, do you think would actually take that deal?
Just to be like a little bit on the, I wouldn't even say conservative, a little bit more on the liberal side. I would say probably at least, I would say a quarter. Just a quarter of them would want to go and just give it a try.
Seriously, you think so? Like some of those people who are like, I
Yes.
wanted to go to my homeland, and they're doing like the DNA test. They're like, I want to know. Okay, all right, I can see that.
I have a friend of mine who lives in the neighborhood. He's a nice kid, lives down the street from me. He comes over sometimes, and he's told me that if he wants to move back to Ghana, because apparently Ghana has an exchange program where if you are Black American and are unsatisfied, they'll let you come and immigrate to their country and come back into the society. Now, is Ghana a place you really want to live? I don't know. I don't know much about Ghana, but yeah, he wants to go. He's like, I'm down to go. Of course, he's young guy, hasn't really, experienced a lot in life. So the idea of going back to the homeland, quote unquote homeland, is totally, a juicy idea for him that he wants to bite into. But I know plenty of people that are like that are like, oh, I want to go back and live with my people that look like me. It's like, okay, go. I'm like, bye.
Yeah, I was more inclined to say with kind of what chat's saying here. They're saying like 2%, 0%. I would say maybe a maximum 5%. So let's not present them with that opportunity. I think the the video stream's kind of falling behind a little bit here because the chat's falling behind a little bit. Holly says COVID affects the platelets, thickens the blood, deep vein thrombosis, heart attacks, strokes, etc. It even is affecting women's menstrual cycles, causing issues. And then Dari says biological warfare. Well, Dari, I don't know if you got the memo, but you cannot bring up that opportunity. We don't want to talk about how they were actually working on this in a lab, looking at gain of function research. Now, as a layman, I'm not a biologist, I'm not a virologist, but it sounds like when you're doing gain of function research on a respiratory virus, that some of the potential outcomes of that gain of function, giving it more functionality, would be things like affecting platelets, causing blood clots, causing tachycardia. But I'm a layman. I'm just asking questions. That's all I'm doing here. I'm not making any claims. YouTube.
Right.
Retired American Patriot says the next question is, how fast would they beg to come back to America? Yeah. How long would they last in Ghana or Nigeria or wherever it is, or God forbid somewhere like Somalia? Jesus, have you seen any recent stuff on how Somalia is? It's really bad over there in most of those places. So, and
send them to Ethiopia.
Tyler says it's getting better in Africa. It is slowly, but you know why it's getting better in Africa, right? Because of China. China. Yeah, they're using Africa for economic growth. They're actually outsourcing a lot of their labor to Africa. They're just building ports, building infrastructure there. They're actually, that's Tyler says, new infrastructure bill, make Africa great again. That's China's version of the infrastructure bill. They're building infrastructure in China, or in Africa. So Man, we hit all the hot topics tonight, and we hit China, racism, shootings, fleeing, resisting arrest, COVID, tachycardias, hyperfeminization of society. I don't know how much more you could ask for in a podcast or a live stream, folks. We're doing this live, okay? You know how much talent it takes to do this live with I don't have notes in front of me or anything like that, okay? We're just reacting live to what you type and what you send into the chat. So if you guys enjoyed this conversation, do the subscription, do the follow, do whatever it is, whatever platform you're listening on, because we are on like eight platforms right now. Stitcher, Google, and iTunes for the podcast. If you want to listen to that, it's called The Alt Centrist. If you're on YouTube, let's get the engagement up. Hit some likes, it'll help us fight the YouTube algorithm. We do this every Tuesday and Saturday at 7 p.m. PST. So we'll catch you guys on Tuesday if you want to come back and visit us again.
Yep. It was great conversation tonight on the YouTube chat. Love you guys always. Just keep your chins up and keep your chins up and your chin straps on, of course, always.
Yes. Speaking of chin straps, I was driving home today. I saw the police had barricaded off the jail here in Sacramento, so we're probably expecting some protests tonight. And so I get to watch the mutants from my high perch in my castle, watch the mutants scuttle around down there, and I'll probably be watching with entertainment and glee. So thanks you guys for stopping by. I'm gonna go get ready for the protests, and we'll see you on Tuesday. You guys better get ready for the protests too. See ya.
Yeah, hide your kids, hide your wife, and hide your husbands too.